There is an axiom in military planning that countries tend to prepare to fight the last war, not the next one. Some historians blamed the incredible death toll of World War I on military commanders who failed to realize that the days of set-piece battles, as in the days of the American Revolution or the Napoleonic Wars, were over. Some have also pointed out that the countries that were overrun in the opening months of World War II were those that were best prepared to engage in trench warfare. As our own republic continues to ready for a war in Iraq, there has been the alarming tendency to see this next war as a replay of our 1991 campaign to liberate Kuwait. Some have taken to calling the impending conflict Gulf War II, as if we could win this conflict in 2003 by rewinding the tapes of smart bombs dropping on their targets in 1991. I fear that many have succumbed to an intellectual and moral laziness that views the coming war through the lens of our victory in 1991. This next war in Iraq will not be like the last. 12 years ago, there was a war in one act with an extensive list of players opposing an aggressive antagonist. Now the curtain is about to rise on a war with the same lead character, Saddam Hussein, but only one great power opposing him, that great power being the one superpower in the world today, the United States. Many countries that played supporting roles in the last war look as though they will, this time, serve more as extras seen only in the crowd scenes without supporting roles. Most ominously, we do not know how long this costly drama might last. It may last a month, it may last 2 months, it may last a week, it may last 2 days. Who knows? I don't. But this conflict will be played out in many acts. As in the last war, the coming battles will draw heavily on U.S. air power, followed by the use of our ground troops to destroy the Iraqi army. That is where the similarities between 1991 and 2003 begin and end. The ultimate goal in the coming war is not to roll back an invasion of a small oil-rich corner of desert that borders on the Persian Gulf. This time, the goal is to conquer the despotic government of Saddam Hussein.
Let us pray that our country will stop this war. To promote the common defense is one of the formational principles of America. Our Congress gave the President the ability to respond to the tragedy of September the 11th. We licensed the response to those who helped create the terror of September the 11th. But we, the people, and our elected representatives, must reserve the right to measure the response, to proportion the response, to challenge the response, and to correct the response. Because we did not authorize the invasion of Iraq. We did not authorize the invasion of Iran. We did not authorize the invasion of North Korea. We did not authorize bombing civilians in Afghanistan. We did not authorize permanent detainees in Guantanamo Bay. We did not authorize the withdrawal from the Geneva Convention. We did not authorize military tribunals suspending due process and habeas corpus. We did not authorize assassination squads. We did not authorize the resurrection of COINTELPRO. We did not authorize the repeal of the Bill of Rights. We did not authorize the revocation of the Constitution. We did not authorize national national identity cards. We did not authorize the eye of Big Brother to peer from cameras throughout our cities. We did not authorize an eye for an eye, nor did we ask the blood of innocent people who perished on September 11th be avenged with the blood of innocent villagers in Afghanistan. We did not authorize this administration to wage war anytime, anywhere, anyhow it pleases. We did not authorize war without end. We did not authorize a permanent war economy, yet we are upon the threshold of a permanent war economy. The President has requested a $45.6 billion increase in military spending. All defense-related programs will cost close to $400 billion. Consider that the Department of Defense has never passed an independent audit. Consider that the Inspector General notified the Congress recently that the Pentagon cannot properly account for $1.2 trillion, that's trillion, in expenditures. It cannot account for $1.2 trillion in transactions. Consider that in recent years the Department of Defense cannot match $22 billion worth of expenditures to the items it purchased. Consider that it wrote off as loss billions of dollars worth of in-transit inventory and stored nearly $30 billion worth of spare parts it did not need. Yet the Pentagon budget grows, with more monies for weapons systems to fight a Cold War which ended, weapons systems in search of new enemies to create new wars. This has nothing to do with fighting terror. This has everything to do with fueling a military-industrial machine with the treasure of our nation, risking the future of our nation, risking democracy itself, and the militarization of thought, which follows militarization of the budget.
Concerns over one of America's secret drones, so-called black operations, that crashed in Iran, and whether it is giving the Iranians highly sensitive information about top-secret intelligence missions. The U.S. denies Iranian claims they shot down the drone, but that's just the start. NBC's Jim Miklaszewski on duty tonight for us at the Pentagon with more exclusive details tonight. Jim, good evening.
Good evening, Brian. NBC News has learned that when that unarmed, unmanned American drone crashed in Iran last Thursday, it was on a mission for the CIA. But the exact nature of the mission is still cloaked in secrecy, and it's still unclear whether the drone was operating in Iran or Afghanistan. U.S. officials tell NBC News that CIA operators on the ground were flying the drone when it suddenly veered out of control and headed deep into Iran. Now, according to U.S. officials, the drone eventually ran out of fuel and crashed in Iran's remote mountains. But this is not just any drone. American officials confirm this is a super-secret stealth drone called an RQ-170, which looks more like a flying wing than any airplane. And it's the same kind of drone that circled over that compound in Pakistan when Navy SEALs took out Osama bin Laden. Now, according to U.S. officials, the Iranians have recovered that wreckage. And the concern here is that they'll use those high-tech cameras and sensors to try to develop that technology for their own. And sources are telling us that American military forces were actually considering a mission into Iran to try to retrieve those secrets, but the Iranians got there first. And tonight, Brian, the CIA has no comment.
All right, Jim Miklaszewski at the Pentagon tonight. Jim, thanks.
That we don't stumble into a wider war here. If we are in Iran's airspace with anything that belongs to the United States, that's a provocation. We shouldn't be doing that. We have no right to fly any kind of aircraft along the Iranian border. It's fundamental. This is a question of national sovereignty. Now, just think for a moment from an American's perspective. How would we feel if an Iranian aircraft, manned or not, was intercepted near the American coast? How would we respond? I would think that there would be an instant response and a military retaliation, because America does not tolerate any type of intervention in our airspace. And that's a matter of national security. Does not Iran or any other nation have the same claim to sovereignty? So if we don't have the capacity to be able to see how these actions are seen in another country, then we really don't have an ability to be able to come up with a coherent foreign policy. We're talking about the CIA here. We're not talking about Papa Drone. The Central Intelligence Agency is well known to be guiding drones that are used in strikes. And, you know, we have to be very careful here. But the United States inevitably speaks with one voice. Whether it's the CIA or the United States military, the United States speaks with one voice. And when we have a drone operating near the airspace or in the airspace of Iran, that's a violation of international sovereignty and can be seen by Iran as a provocation. We need to work with Iran to work out these differences that we have on the nuclear issue. We should not, this is a very sensitive time, we should not be starting to build the tensions with this kind of an incitement, which it clearly is. So when you start to connect the dots, those dots start to spell the word war. Whether it's a covert or an overt war, war is war. Don't we have enough wars that we're fighting in the United States? Do we need another war? Did I miss something that we somehow ran out of wars to create? Stop it. That's what my message is. Stop this. Stop the escalation. Stop trying to substitute war for diplomacy. There are those who say war is diplomacy by another means. No, war is war. And diplomacy is about the science of human relations, if anyone believes in such a thing in this town.
Well, I suppose there are those who would say diplomacy is simply not working with Iran in dealing with its nuclear
How would we
ambitions.
know if we move to the next step? Look, the United States, I think, from the beginning has misplayed this situation with Iran. If we want to get rid of nuclear weapons or the potential of Iran in the future to have nuclear weapons, then let us lead the way towards nuclear disarmament. We can't be picking nuclear winners and losers. If we want to discourage Iran from developing its nuclear technology, all I would do is show them how expensive nuclear power is, how inevitably it blows a hole in the budgets of those who are heavily invested in it, and how there's other ways of being able to power one's nation. We've had the wrong debate from the beginning and the wrong approach towards dealing with Iran. We cannot pretend that the United States is in a position where we can or have the right or the money to rule the world. We have enough time taking care of things back here at home, where we have 50 million people without health care, 14 million people who are out of work, millions of people losing their homes, and we're going to tell the Iranians how to run their country? Are you kidding me?